Imagine a time machine drops you into a hunter-gatherer camp 40,000 years ago. Before you see anything, before your eyes even adjust to the firelight, one sense hits you first. The smell. Sweat, smoke, animal hide, unwashed skin, all of it layered together into something your modern nose has never once encountered. Not even close. No deodorant has ever existed near these people. No soap, no running water, just human bodies living exactly as bodies have lived for almost the entire history of our species, with nothing standing between skin and air. It would probably be overwhelming, maybe even nauseating by modern standards. You might genuinely struggle to breathe normally for the first few minutes, but here's what almost nobody tells you. That smell wasn't just an absence of hygiene. For most of human history, it was doing something. Smell wasn't a problem to be solved. It was information, and ancient humans were reading it constantly, the same way you read a facial expression without even trying. Let's start with the obvious question. Why didn't they just wash? It's not that they didn't understand dirt or grime, it's that the entire infrastructure of cleanliness as we know it didn't exist. No plumbing, no soap as we would recognize it. Water sources weren't always close, and using water meant for drinking on bathing wasn't always a luxury anyone could afford. For most of human history, across most environments, regular full-body washing simply wasn't part of daily life the way it is now. And here's something that surprises people. Sweat itself barely smells. Fresh human sweat is mostly water and salt, nearly odorless straight off the skin. What actually creates body odor is bacteria living on our skin, breaking down compounds in that sweat and releasing the smell as a byproduct of their own metabolism. So ancient humans weren't smelling worse because their sweat was somehow different from ours. They were smelling stronger because that bacterial process had more time and more unwashed skin surface area to work with day after day, with nothing ever interrupting it. Now, here's where it gets genuinely interesting. In hunter-gatherer societies, scent wasn't just tolerated. In some cultures, it carried real social meaning, functioning almost like a visible badge that everyone around you could instantly read. Among the Suya people of central Brazil, anthropologists have documented that a strong body odor was considered completely normal, even expected for certain people within the group. Children who hadn't yet been socialized into adult norms were expected to smell strong. So were elders who were no longer bound by the same social restrictions as younger adults. Smell in this context wasn't shameful or something to apologize for. It was a marker of where you stood in the social order, as legible as clothing or posture. Smell also did something even more practical. It helped people navigate the world. Among groups like the Umeda of New Guinea, researchers have found that smell functions almost as well as sight for finding your way through dense, unfamiliar terrain. The scent of a particular lake, a stand of trees, or a patch of decaying vegetation can mark a trail as reliably as a visual landmark, especially in environments where thick canopy or fog limits how far you can actually see. For some tasks, like detecting a distant campfire, smell can actually outperform sight entirely. You can smell smoke drifting through dense forests long before you'd ever spot the faintest hint of it through the trees. This wasn't a backup sense, something used only when sight failed. For groups living deeply embedded in a natural landscape, scent was a primary tool for moving safely and efficiently through the world, woven into daily decisions about which direction to walk and which path led home. So if smell mattered this much, did ancient humans do anything about controlling their own? This is where the story gets stranger. There's a theory still being researched that one of humanity's oldest rituals might have doubled as one of its oldest hygiene practices. For over 100,000 years, humans have used red ochre, a naturally occurring iron oxide pigment, in burials, body decoration, and ritual. For most of that time, the assumption was that ochre was purely symbolic, used for its color and its association with blood and life. But researchers studying a different animal gave us a new clue. The bearded vulture, a scavenger bird that competes directly with humans for carcasses, has a habit of bathing in muddy water rich in red ochre, repeatedly dunking and coating its feathers and skin in the reddish mud. When scientists studied why an animal would deliberately seek this out, they found something unexpected. In sunlight, red ochre triggers chemical reactions that can kill bacteria and viruses and break down smelly organic compounds into odorless, harmless gas. In other words, ochre bathing isn't just incidental for this bird, it's functional, almost like a built-in sanitizing routine. It cleans and deodorizes the skin and feathers using nothing more than mud, iron oxide, and ordinary sunlight, no soap or modern chemistry required. If a vulture independently evolved this behavior purely for hygiene benefits, the question becomes hard to ignore. Did ancient humans, living in the same environments, surrounded by the same materials, under the same sun, stumble onto the same trick through observation or trial and error? It's a compelling theory, not a settled fact, but the timing lines up suspiciously well. Ochre use appears deep in the human archaeological record, especially around rituals involving birth and death, moments when controlling odor and bacteria would have mattered most. So smell wasn't necessarily something ancient humans simply endured. There's a real possibility they were actively managing it, just with completely different tools than we use today. Then agriculture happened, and everything about how humans lived close together changed. As populations grew denser in early cities and farming communities, the stakes around smell shifted. You weren't just smelling your small familiar band anymore. You were smelling hundreds, then thousands, of strangers packed into shared spaces. This is where something new emerges in the historical record. Perfume, used specifically to mask the body, not just to honor the gods. Ancient Egyptians developed elaborate fragrance pastes made from ingredients like ostrich egg, tortoiseshell, and gallnuts, worn on the head, neck, and wrist in thick, deliberate layers. Wealthy Egyptians and Mesopotamians used oil-based scents made from cardamom, cinnamon, myrrh, and rose, often applied as part of daily ritual rather than as an occasional indulgence. For the first time in the historical record, smelling a certain way became a marker of status and wealth, something performed deliberately, not just a side effect of survival anymore. Centuries later, Roman writers described certain northern groups often dismissively as having an unusually strong odor, tied partly to their habit of wearing animal skins even in warmer climates. The smell of civilization in the Roman mind had started to mean something specific, and anyone outside that definition was, quite literally, on the nose as an outsider. This is the moment smell stopped being purely practical and started becoming social and cultural. Who smelled right and who didn't, increasingly marked who belonged and who was considered other. It would take thousands more years and the arrival of modern sewage systems and running water in the 19th century before the idea most people hold today finally took shape, that to be clean is to have no smell at all. That idea is relatively new. For the vast majority of human history, total scentlessness wasn't even a realistic option, let alone the goal. So if you stepped into that hunter-gatherer camp 40,000 years ago, yes, the smell would probably hit you hard enough to make your eyes water before you even said a word to anyone. But what hits you isn't a failure of hygiene, some embarrassing gap in their understanding of cleanliness. It's the residue of an entirely different relationship with your own body and your own senses, one where odor carried real information instead of being something to eliminate as fast and as completely as possible. Modern humans have spent the last century systematically removing smell from daily life. We've gained comfort, certainly, and probably some genuine health benefits along the way, fewer infections, less disease spread through close contact. But we've also lost an entire channel of communication our ancestors relied on without a second thought, a sense that once told you who belonged, where, which way home was, and what kind of danger or safety was nearby. Every time you reach for deodorant without thinking twice, you're making a choice your ancient ancestors never had the option to make, and likely never would have understood the need for. Their world spoke to them through scent in ways ours has gone almost completely silent, and most of us walk around every day without ever noticing exactly what we traded away to get there.